Vallabha Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Kopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna, Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So 55, right? Yes. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 28th day of January 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 18. Conclusion, the perfection of renunciation. Text number 55 on page 695. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yash chasmi tatpataha tato mam Tattvato Gyatva Vishate tadanantaram bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatpataha tato mang tatpato gyatpa Vishate tadanantaram bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatpataha tato mang tatpato gyatpa Vishate tadanantaram bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatpataha tato mam tatpato gyatpa Vishate tadanantaram. Go ahead, Tapas. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatpataha tato mam tatpato gyatva Vishate tadanantaram bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatpataha tato mam tatpato gyatva Vishate tadanantaram. Bhushan. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatpataha tato mam tatpato gyatva Vishate tadanantaram bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatpataha tato mang tatpato gyatva Vishate tadanantaram bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatpataha tato mam tatpato gyatva Vishate tadanantaram. Ami? Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyaschasmi tatpataha tato mam tatpato gyatva Vishate tadanantaram. Okay. No? Not yet? Okay. All right, I'll be through the word by words. Bhaktya, by pure devotional service, mam, me, abhijanati, one can know, yavan, as much as, yaha cha asmi, as I am, tatvataha, in truth, tatach, thereafter, mam, me, tatvataha, in truth, gyatva, knowing, vishate, he enters, tat anantaram, thereafter. Translation, Krishna says to Arjuna, one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and his plenary portions cannot be understood by mental speculation, nor by the non-devotees. If anyone wants to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has to take to pure devotional service under the guidance of a pure devotee. Otherwise, the truth of the Supreme Personality of Godhead will always be hidden. As already stated in the Bhagavad Gita 7.25, Naham Prakasha Sarvasya. He is not revealed to everyone. No one can understand God simply by erudite scholarship or mental speculation. Only one who is actually engaged in Krishna consciousness and devotional service can understand what Krishna is. University degrees are not helpful. One who is fully conversant with the Krishna science becomes eligible to enter into the spiritual kingdom, the abode of Krishna. Becoming Brahman does not mean that one loses his identity. Devotional service is there, And as long as devotional service exists, there must be God, the devotee, and the process of devotional service. Such knowledge is never vanquished, even after liberation. Liberation involves getting free from the concept of material life. In spiritual life, the same distinction is there, the same individuality is there, but in pure Krishna consciousness. One should not mistakenly think that the word vishate enters into me supports the monist theory that one becomes homogeneous with the impersonal Brahman. No. Vishate means that one can enter into the abode of the Supreme Lord in one's individuality, to engage in his association and render service unto him. For instance, a green bird enters a green tree, not to become one with the tree, but to enjoy the fruits of the tree. Impersonalists generally give the example of a river flowing into the ocean and merging. This may be a source of happiness for the impersonalist, but the personalist keeps his personal individuality like an aquatic in the ocean. We find so many living entities within the ocean if we go deep. Surface acquaintance with the ocean is not sufficient. One must have complete knowledge of the aquatics living in the ocean depths. Because of his pure devotional service, a devotee can understand the transcendental qualities and the opulences of the Supreme Lord in truth. As it is stated in the 11th chapter, only by devotional service can one understand. The same is confirmed here. One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by devotional service and enter into his kingdom. After attainment of the Brahma Bhuta stage of freedom from material conceptions, devotional service begins by one's hearing about the Lord. When one hears about the Supreme Lord, automatically the Brahma Bhuta stage develops, and material contamination, greediness and lust for sense enjoyment disappears. As lust and desires disappear from the heart of a devotee, he becomes more attached to the service of the Lord, and by such attachment, he becomes free from material contamination. In that state of life, he can understand the Supreme Lord. This is the statement of Srimad Bhagavatam also. After liberation, the process of bhakti or transcendental service continues. The Vedanta Sutra 4.1.12 confirms this. Prayanat tatrapi hidrishtam. This means that after liberation, the process of devotional service continues. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, real devotional liberation is defined as the reinstatement of the living entity in his own identity, his own constitutional position. The constitutional position is already explained. Every living entity is a part and parcel fragmental portion of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, his constitutional position is to serve. After liberation, this service is never stopped. Actual liberation is getting free from misconceptions of life. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So it's interesting, I've been pointing out as we've been going through this chapter how the very short purports for the most part, but suddenly we see that the purports are getting quite long, because these are the culminating verses of the whole Bhagavad Gita. So this verse is quite famous, as is the previous verse, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma, but this one is very key to understand the process of devotional service. So first thing I'd like to point out is that in this verse you have this word tattvataha appearing twice. You see that? That means it's very important. In truth, bhaktyamam abhijanati yavanyashtasmi tattvataha, to understand me in truth, in other words, in reality, one must perform devotional service. And having understood me in truth, one can enter into the spiritual world. And this Prabhupada's immortal phrase, going back home, back to Godhead. There's a lot in that phrase. And first of all, back home means that's where we came from. It's not an alien place. It's not like this is the first time we're going to see there. We were there originally, but we're fallen souls. We are part of the minority. Most of the living entities are still there. They're still in the spiritual world. And there's different planets, different manifestations of the spiritual world. The Vaikuntha planets, which are where you may have seen a picture of Vishnu with 4 hands, and he's got the conch shell and lotus flower and club and disc. So that's the form in which you will find Krishna in the Vaikuntha planets. And there's one relationship there, and that is one of service, awe and reverence, which is perfectly fine, you see. And there's countless living entities who are very happy just to revere the Lord and understand His magnificence and to serve Him in that way. That's called dasya rasa, the servanthood rasa relationship. But in the high, we say the highest Vaikuntha planet. Vaikuntha planet simply means a place where there's no anxiety. Can we try to wrap our mind around that? There's so much anxiety in this world. You know, if you have a period of one day when you're not in any anxiety, you count that as a positive day, right? When a good part of the day, okay, everything is going just nicely. I got my rent paid. I feel pretty good, you know, and everything good. But you can see there's so many conditions that are necessary to be in that situation. If anything happens, just like, I don't know about you, but these fires in LA are freaking everybody out. You know, what is this? This is, there's nothing, you cannot do anything about it. It's like an earthquake. What can you do? It's happening. You know, you can just deal with it, try to get away from it. So this is the material world. The material world means a place of, as Krishna certifies it in the 8th chapter, dukkali amashashvatam. Dukkha simply means difficulties, things that bring you pain. You know, we're all adults. We've had plenty of experience of that, right, in our life. It can be mental pain. It could be physical pain, emotional pain, you know. Whatever it is, that's what it means to be a sentient human being in the material world. So Krishna says, dukkha alayam. Alayam means an abode where eventually every living being, not just human beings, but whether you're an insect or a plant or a cow or whatever, there's going to be difficulties in life, and ultimately it gets super difficult, and you get ill or injured or something, and you leave the body. The body is just a machine when you think about it. Very complicated machine that we can't build, but it's an incredible machine. I always like to point out how you want proof of God, just look at your own body. It's so amazing, the brain, you know, that you can formulate these thoughts and these emotions and the complicated way. 98.6, I learned that when I was like, what, 3rd grade? That's the right, you know, your mother is taking temperature. And what, oh, you have a fever. It's 100 degrees, you know. 98.6. That's the temperature that has to be regulated for things to go on. And somehow there's a mechanism in there where it's incredibly complicated. And we have a very advanced medical science, you know, but still there's so many things they don't know. So, the basic principle of Vedic wisdom, not just the Bhagavad Gita, is that we're in this situation of what's called asat. Asat means ever-changing. We have experienced our own bodies. We all grew up. We remember, you know, we have certain memories from when you're 8-year-old, you know, and 12 and things. Some stick out, emotional things, you know. I remember when my brother almost tried to kill me, and can't forget that. I was about 8 years old. I thought he was anyway. So I was alive at that time. I had a different body. I had a different mind, right? The name was the same. I mean, the legal name. Anyway, but now you go on and on and on. The body keeps changing. And eventually it becomes untenable. It's like any machine, you know. You need to throw that. I think there's a trash can out there. Does anyone know? Why don't you show? So in the Vedic culture, there's this understanding that this is not natural. This is not our original position, to be in this ever-changing physical body, material. It's called conditioned life, which is temporary. Because as you know, you develop certain aspirations, certain relationships, certain desires in life, and you may fulfill them, you see, maybe marriage and children or whatever it may be. But all of those things are temporary. Your relationship with them are temporary because your relationship with the body is temporary. It's not that we are the body. We the soul, have a relationship with this body, very intimate relationship, and with other embodied souls, right? Human beings and others. And that's what life is all about. But eventually, whatever you develop in this life, you think, well, I have certain things that I have. Would you like to? There's plenty of room. You can sit on the bench and make sure she has a book. Yeah. Yeah, just give her a book there. We have it. We're on page 695. God, she can figure it out. It's at the top of the page. So the Vedic culture, you need a book too. No? Yeah, we have so many books. They're taking this into account. They say, well, this is the basic problem that we have, is that birth, and then we grow and get old age, disease, death, and then we have another birth. There's a cycle that's been going on since time immemorial. In one sense, it's very revelatory to understand, if you have faith in it, that we don't die. Nobody dies and nobody takes birth. Because we ourselves are this consciousness within the body. That's who we are. And each of us is equal in that regard. But we all have different bodies and different capacities and all these different things. But whatever it is, it's just a passing phase. We have been doing this, who knows, for how many millions of years. We have forgot them all. If we remember them all, we go nuts. Can you imagine trying to remember those last 30 times I died? Oh boy, that was a bad one, you know. Got eaten up, you know. No, thank you. But whatever it is, it's not our original position. The original position is, this phrase is this is a very famous phrase, Sat Chit Ananda. Sat means eternal, Chit means full of knowledge, and Ananda means full of bliss. We are inherently Sat Chit Ananda, each one of us. But you can see in the material bodies, we're not Sat Chit Ananda. The body is temporary. There's millions and trillions of things we don't know. We're not full of unlimited knowledge. And who can say that they're always blissful? You know, if you have like a good day, you know, you go to and everything works out all right. Well, that was cool, you know. But that's just low level satisfaction. Ananda means, you know, full of happiness of different varieties, and that has to include, as we can understand, relationship with others. It can't just be that, like the last verse, Brahma Bhuta, to merge into Brahman. There's these three different understandings of the absolute truth. There's this impersonal white light that's just pure consciousness that you can also aspire for. Let me end it all. No more birth, old age, disease, and death. Let me just merge into the Brahman and be eternally there and gloriously free from birth, old age, disease, and death. But that's not going to give you ultimate happiness, because as living beings, we are individual persons. We're individual persons in the model of the Lord. In other words, we're all what's called part and parcel of the Lord. Just like we have the sunshine. So the sunshine is intimately related with the sun, and it has each ray of sunshine has a little light and a little heat. And you take, you know, billions and billions of rays of sunshine, and you get what the sun affects. The sun affects the Earth and every other planet. So, or the ocean. What could be a better example? You take out a little thimble full of the ocean water, right? Minuscule and insignificant compared to the Pacific Ocean, but it has the same qualities. It's a little salty. It'll have the same. You see? So similarly, we have the same qualities that God has, because we're part and parcel of God, but in minute degree. And because we are minute, we have the tendency to be covered by the material energy. You see, to turn away from God and to become absorbed in the dualities of this world, so that we want to be little gods. We want to be in charge, we want to enjoy, you see, and we want to be eternal, but we're not, we can't. We can't always enjoy, and we're not eternal, we're not Sat Chit Ananda in these bodies. So we want to regain that Sat Chit Ananda quality. And Bhakti Yoga, as taught by the Bhagavad Gita, and especially the line coming down through Lord Chaitanya, which features this easiest process of meditation. See, the real problem, the real key to any yoga process that's serious is the mind. The mind. The mind, when we turn away from Krishna and we get exposed to the material energy, then our mind becomes filled with all kinds of desires to dominate and to enjoy. because that's what the model we have. And we forget God. We forget our whole life in the spiritual world. And we try to build a similar world here, you see, but it's not possible. We're not God, and we don't have the powers to do that. And we get various material bodies. So the real effort, the basic aspiration that we should embrace is to go in a certain way, do what's needed in order to return to that wonderful life of Satchidananda, eternal life of bliss and knowledge, which is permeated with bhakti. Bhakti is love. And Krishna is saying here, you cannot understand me in truth. And notice that the word tattvata appears twice in this verse. Very important words. To understand me, abhijanati means to know. To understand me in truth, you see, one can do that only through bhakti, through love. Because Krishna reveals proportionately. It's just like any some big personage in the world, some big government figure. You can know who they are, what their position is, and you read about them in the newspaper. But if you really want to know who they are, you have to be their friend. They have to invite you home and to learn, really what, in depth. So similarly, Krishna reveals proportionately to how much you're engaging in and feeling love and affection for him and expressing it through your life. And that's what bhakti is all about. When we chant this name, this mantra, it's actually an appeal to the Lord to please engage me in your service. Oh, Radha Krishna, please engage me in your service. Hare is the feminine counterpart of Krishna, and you see on the altar. So please engage me in your service, because that service, which engages every part of our being, the mind, the intelligence, the ego, the senses, everything, we can connect with Krishna. For instance, you can clean your house every day, or maybe every week, whatever it may be, But if you come here and you clean this temple room, that's service to Krishna, and you make advancement. You see, you get attracted. If you come in, you can. I like to point out. I'm sorry, I keep using the same analogy for those who hear the classes, but I take a walk every morning up Cass. I'm chanting Hare Krishna and walking, so I'm getting body, mind, and soul. And so they recently opened up within the last 6 months, 8 months or so, a new gym, and there's been so many here, and usually they're just a whole bunch of stationary bikes. You go in there and you exercise, they may have some showers, I don't know, whatever. But this is more. They have music going on. You have coaches in there, and there's a whole bunch of people that come at 6:30 in the morning before work. They're trudging, all young people, everyone under 30, And this is a temple for the spirit, right? And there's so many things that we do. That's a temple for the body, where they're just making the body strong so we can enjoy more, like that. So it's very telling, because it says, here I am. Of course, I'm also taking care of the body, doing the walk, but I'm also chanting at the same time. I'm doing this for Krishna, to keep the body going so I can keep serving. But that's taking them in a certain direction, In other words, it's almost a worship of the body, and this is what this culture is all about. I'm not saying these are bad people or something. But it's a whole different focus. I try to say good morning to them. It's hard to get them away from the cell phone because everyone's working with the cell phone, and it's like this. They got the ear pods in there, But if I can get their attention, say, good morning. And sometimes I'll even say Hare Krishna, They know I'm Hare Krishna, I'm in these clothes, But it's a completely different focus of what the aspiration is. I can understand that, I used to be into that, But if you're just into the body consciousness, it's so limited and so self-defeating, because no matter what you do, you're going to get old, and ultimately you're going to have to leave this body. So here Krishna is saying that one can understand me as I am by bhakti. This whole book, Bhagavad Gita, ultimately culminates in this. In the next few verses, he's going to give the essential instructions. That by the process of bhakti yoga, one can understand me as I am in truth. And knowing me in truth, one can enter into the spiritual world and return back to Godhead. So the processes of practicing bhakti, which are detailed in other books that we have. We have this book called Nectar of Devotion, and of course the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a multi-volume work, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Srila Prabhupada wrote so many wonderful books. Expanding on this principle of bhakti yoga, how it can be, engaged in and successful. So Prabhupada explains that one is eligible to enter the kingdom. How Krishna sees the purity, and he himself purifies by the contact. It's just like going out in the sun. If you go out in the sun, then you're going to get a tan. You get the effects of the sunshine. The sun shines on some place that's impure, and eventually dries up and everything and becomes purified. By the power of that sun, it has a certain power. So similarly, Krishna, he purifies just by if you think of him, or if you chant his holy name. This is Krishna, he incarnates, he comes periodically to this world, but very infrequently. Once every 8,640,000,000 years. That's one day of Brahma. One day a night. So, now think about it. 5,000 years ago, Krishna came. Compared to 8,400,000,000. We're practically contemporaries. And even more significant, just 530 years ago or so, a little more, he came again as Lord Chaitanya. And out of his, this the mercy, Krishna says in a few verses, the same famous verse, Sarva dharma parityaja mame kam sharanam maja aham tvam savapapebhyo mokshiyasyami mashicha. Reject all other dharmas and surrender only unto me. Your sins I'll nullify, O Arjuna, from anxiety be free. You see? But he said, you got to surrender. Surrender unto me. You have to, which is basic Krishna consciousness. But when Krishna came 500 and some years, he didn't even ask that. He just said, you just chant. Join the kirtan. That was his major preaching. Krishna's same Krishna. And he preached this mantra, this powerful mantra. And, Krishna is all powerful, and sometimes the ways he's all powerful are hard to understand. But he can manifest his mercy and his presence through sound, through the holy name. So this name, if you just chant it, you may not know any philosophy, you may not even read the Bhagavad Gita, though it helps, for sure. But just by chanting and hearing that sound, you're associating with Krishna becoming purified. And you're practicing bhakti. And indeed, for those who are really serious in the practice, and there's a certain number of rounds, we chant on beads like a rosary, every morning. 16 times around, 108 beads, it takes about 2 hours. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare. That's not some secret mantra, I'm just giving you the mantra. It's open to everyone. And of course, if you're chanting and you're serious, then there are certain other rules and regulations you want to follow in your life to enhance that chanting so it works quicker. But if you keep chanting, you'll get response. But ultimately, it's necessary to really take the next step, to learn the science of God and to what is happening, and to be determined. Like in any process, it's called the Bhakti Marga. Marga means a path. And as I pointed out in many classes recently, is that it's like anything. Suppose you want to get a degree. I want to become a doctor. Well, that's not easy, right? So we have to get into medical school. For that, you have to get good grades, I guess. And then you have to work organic chemistry. When I was in college, they said, "Oh yeah, organic chemistry. Whoa, that's the hardest thing to learn." I didn't try it, but there's so many steps you have to take. Do's and don'ts, right? You can't party every night. You have to do your homework. You have to prepare for the test, like that. So you can't. No, But yes, study. Yes, study. No, don't party. So similarly, there are do's and don'ts in Krishna consciousness, the process of becoming purified and returning back to Godhead, which is the ultimate goal. And so there's a process, And there is an institution like we have here, like a university, if you're serious, you know. But the wonderful thing is we don't charge anything. No one had to pay $5 to get into the class. Did you, Abby? Did you pay? No. It's just your time and your attention. That is all that is necessary. Anyway, this is a very important verse. Krishna will reveal himself, just like, you know, even on a material platform. If someone is your intimate friend, you know, or your lover, or your wife, whatever, then they know more about you than just your acquaintances. You'll reveal, you know, more intimate things. So similarly, Krishna sees, oh, this person really loves me. Then he reveals more. At the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, Krishna says, Sehivaya maya teja yoga proktapara bhaktosi me sakacheti rahasam yeturuttamam. Krishna reveals in the 4th chapter, I spoke this science of Gita millions of years ago to the sun god. You know, this God, all these planets have God. And Arjuna, taking the role, he says, how could that be? We're contemporaries, we're friends. How did you speak to the sun god millions of years ago? He says, yeah, you know, many, many births both you and I have had. I can remember them all, but you can't. You were there, but you forgot, you see. So then why is he speaking it to me again? He says, because you're my friend and you're my devotee. Therefore you can understand the secrets of this. Everything is personal ultimately. See, that's what bhakti is all about. It's not that you go alone somewhere and practice yoga, you know, on the top of a hill somewhere. No, no, no. You come down to the temple and you sing together, you know, and chant. And by the association, you make advancement. So that's how we advance. And this verse is very inspiring because it ultimately, I was just hearing a lecture by Prabhupada every day I listen. And there's this book called the Vedanta Sutra. Sutras are little aphorisms. But Vedanta means the ultimate knowledge. And this is like it distilled ultimate knowledge of all the Vedas in this Vedanta Sutra. And each of those sutras, they need explanation. It's like you know, because they're sutras, they're aphorisms. So the first one is Atato Brahma Jigyasa. So it begins with the, you know, now therefore. Now do you begin, how can you begin a book with therefore? Therefore is at the end of an argument, right? Because now therefore, having read all the other Upanishads and everything, now you come to the Vedanta, which means the end or the ultimate knowledge. Veda Anta, you see? Sutra. So now therefore, as a human being, you should inquire into Brahman, the absolute truth. Then the next question is, well, what is that absolute truth? That's the second sutra. Janmad yasya yataha. That's the whole sutra. It means that from which everything was born. Janmas means birth. And adi means etc. So what's etc.? Creating, maintaining, and destroying. That from which is the source of everything, which or who maintains everything, and which ultimately destroys everything. That's what we need to know. That's the Param Brahma, the Supreme Brahman. And it turns out that that's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who reveals himself in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Krishna says, Ahame vasame bagre nanyad yat sarasat padam pashtaraham midechata yo vishisheti sosmiham. Said, before there was any of this manifestation of all of this matter, I existed. You see? And after it's created, I alone exist because it's all my energy. And then when it's all wound up, I continue to exist. Only God can say that. The one God, the one source of everything. See? So the Bhagavatam explains and expands on who that absolute truth is. So that really is the purpose of human life. Right at the beginning of Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter of the 1st canto, there's a verse there, and I always refer to these verses, second chapter of the 1st canto. It says, Kamasinendriya priti labo jivet yavata jivasa tattva jigyasa narto yasheya karma bihi. Notice that word jigyasa is in that verse. So jigyasa means your attention, your inquiry. Because when you think about it, what do we do with the mind in our waking time? Our attention is going from one thing to another. We're trying to study for an exam, we're trying to find out something here, we're reading here, you know, it's all attention. So the object of our attention, of our inquiry, We're always asking questions, you know. What is the price of this? How can I get this? How can I escape from that? So, tattva jigyasa. The whole kamas and indriyapriti. Life should not be aimed toward sense satisfaction. Kamas and indriyapriti. Labo jiveti avada. You live simply. Keep body and soul together, but most of your attention should be toward what is it? Yabo jivasya tattva jigyasa. One should live in order to inquire. Is that word jigyasa, just like in the Vedanta Sutra, into this truth of the self or the soul, the Atma, you know, the supreme Brahman Krishna. Nato yasceya karma bhi. Nothing else should be the goal of one's works. In other words, that should be the priority. And it's all a question of time. We have a certain amount of time at our disposal, a certain amount of living energy and ability to inquire. And we should focus on that because that's the mission of our life, to make this our last embodied life so that we can regain our spiritual nature and Satchidananda and have our unlimited pastimes with the Lord in the spiritual world. What are those pastimes? Krishna book. We have a book. In the 10th canto, it's described what is going on in the spiritual world. Varieties of pastimes and that Krishna enjoys, and we're invited. We just need to be pure. Okay, any questions or comments on this very important verse?
Hare Krishna.
Haribol. No.
Many children's stories, especially Disney ones, end with, and they lived happily ever after. Can you relate that to Satchit Ananda?
Well, first of all, that, you know, in that phrase, which I remember in childhood, you know, it was nice hearing that phrase at the end. But it's obviously impossible on this plane, you know, in the material life. It's a desire, it's an aspiration, and in a fairy tale, you know, which we know are not true, then you can have that they lived happily ever after. But in real life, no one really lives happily ever after on this plane. 85 years old, and got so many aches and pains. Where's the happiness? You know? So that, but it's a good observation because it shows that the longing, the ultimate desire, is to live happily ever after. And on the material plane, we don't know anything about God or who we are, or whatever, you know. So we have fairy tales where you can kind of, you know, have that illusion that you're living happy, and then you fall asleep. You know, it's 8 years old. Okay. Maybe had nice dreams, but it's all in Maya. You know, it's all illusion. It's this temporary thing. You know, the next day, you know, who knows? There'll be sand and winds blowing, and we got to get out of the house. You know, in the next 5 minutes, it's going to burn up. What happened to the happily ever after? Here I am living in, you know, the Palisades. You know, Altadena. You know, for generations, finished. It's a lesson to be learned from that. You know. And I remember when I came here, moved here 35 years ago, I came from Miami. Now Miami, as we know, we've learned it's danger there, hurricanes, right? And you got to, you know, especially a certain season, 4 months or so, July through October, you got to read that. First thing you read in the morning is, what's the weather report? You know, there's something blowing up. Luckily, while I was there, I didn't experience the hurricane. When I moved here, I knew that, the earthquakes. I read about this San Andreas fault. Where is it? Am I on the fault? And I said, when I'm down here in San Diego, it's quite a bit east from us, right? It's a little bit. But there was an earthquake up in Joshua Tree. This is, 25 years ago. And I was chanting upstairs where we have the ashram now. We had the store there, and we could chant in the morning. I was chanting japa. Suddenly, the whole thing is moving. You know, I run down and I look. We had a different set of chandeliers, but they were moving. They were going. You know. And of course, I should have been running toward the deities, but I didn't. I ran out the door. And there I was on the sidewalk, and I'm still feel like I'm on a surfboard. You know. But that's as bad as it got. You know, for maybe half a minute or less, you know, and then we learned it was centered up in Joshua Tree, which is there's nobody there, so there weren't any injuries. But then there was one in L.A. I wasn't there for that one, but I heard about it. This was '94, I believe, and it happened just, you know, like 4:30, 4:30 a.m. and 30 seconds. So anyone in that's when we have this, the Mangal Arti, the curtains open, you see. And you see that little onyx pillar there? That used to be in L.A. That's from L.A. And they had whole decorations on the side. I was there when they built it. They put hundreds of thousands of dollars of hanging onyx. You know, it was very expensive. You know, but it really made it very opulent. Well, when that earthquake happened, I wasn't there, but I heard what happened. The devotees, you know, they stand here, and then the conch blows, and then you bow down, you go to the central altar. So the conch blew. Everyone, and there's like 80 devotees in the temple at that time, and they all came to the center. Then the earthquake happened. All that onyx came crashing down, and nobody was injured. If it had happened 30 seconds earlier, you know, it would have hit some devotees in serious injury. But it was horrific, you know. I think they moved the deities out and everything because it was a disaster. That's the world we live in, you know. So, but in the spiritual world, Krishna's in charge at every moment. You know, there's none of that. There may be some. So the devotees ask, "Are there demons there too? Because Krishna killed so many demons." No, there's no demons, but there may be some hints of demons, so that the gopis can be, you know, take shelter of Krishna. You know that. So anyway, it's what is going on in the spiritual world? Leela. Leela means play, things that you want to do, you know. So Krishna has a job that's all play all day. You're just herding the cows, you know. Let's go. For Krishna and how's it go? So Krishna, there's a painting where Krishna is running ahead of it with Balaram on the bank of the Yamuna River with all the cows and the boys behind him, you know. So I made a poem, caption for that. "Let's go," said Krishna, "don't delay at all." And he and Balaram began to run ahead of all their coward friends who called, "Oh Krishna, Rama, let us join the fun." And off they ran to Braja's forest haunts, to play in every bower, grove, and sward. That's a meadow. Bower, grove, and sward. The boys would tease their friend with playful taunts, forgetting his position as the Lord. Shri Krishna is inviting us as well to join him in his pastimes which enthrall. The wise heed Krishna when they hear him tell, "Let's go, my friends, do not delay at all." So that's what the spiritual world is like. It's a wonderful land of adventure and loving relationships between you and Krishna and all the other residents of Vrindavan, you know, of Goloka Vrindavan. So we simply need to cultivate it and make progress. That's the idea, is that we may not go back to God at this lifetime, but we can make progress in going back to God. All right, so we should do one more verse. 56. Oh, go ahead.
Like Krishna is saying, Bhakta Mam Abhijanati. But like Krishna's pastimes from 10th canto Bhagavatam, we know that.
Krishna's pastimes what?
In the 10th canto, like Krishna book, we know that even Lord Brahma, who is the greatest devotee of Lord Krishna, and also greatest yogi austerity, he lives trillions of life. He got bewildered seeing little Krishna carrying the shoes of Nanda Maharaj on his head. So, and also we see the Indra, who is the king of heaven.
Yeah.
He must have done tons of austerity, many thousands of lakhs of years.
Yeah.
And must be very intelligent than us. He got bewildered.
Repeatedly.
Yeah,
bewildered. Yeah, if you study, Indra's always losing it.
Yeah, and then the Govardhan Lila pastime happened.
Yeah.
And same
so
thing.
How are we to understand that?
Yeah, so what is the
Well, your premise is wrong when you say that Brahma is the greatest devotee. No. The cows in Goloka Vrindavan are greater than Brahma. Brahma is a great devotee, but there are many Brahmas. You know, this was like revealed by Prabhupada in the 9th canto. You know, what happens when we leave the spiritual world? The first birth is Brahma. Oh, wow. Well, how about, you know, all these blades of grass? You mean they were all once Brahmas? How did that compute? Each Brahma lives to be 311 trillion, 40 billion years? How does it compute, you know? But anyway, Brahma is a great devotee, has a lot of responsibilities, but he's not on the level of the residents of Vrindavan, you see. So therefore he could become bewildered. But he performs a very important service, because then at that point he becomes bewildered, but he offers these wonderful prayers, which are, extremely important prayers, which I won't get into right now, in the 14th chapter. There are many commentaries written on them. So, and of course, our Brahma, this Brahma does go back to Godhead. He's the head of our Sampradaya, But as far as the more advanced devotees are those who are really oblivious to Krishna's power and glory. That's all hidden by their love. It's obscured, and they simply have this intimate relationship with him that they can explore in so many details. So we have to understand that. And Indra, poor Indra, he no matter what happens, even after the Govardhan Leela, and he finally, he had all his prayers and everything. Then later on, when Krishna was with Satyabhama returning the earrings of Aditi, which was stolen by Bhaumasura, and Satyabhama, she gets attracted to the tree, what is it? Parijata. And so she gets a tree, she's taking, and she says, no, you can't take the tree. And so there's a fight. It's not a serious fight, but after the Govardhan Leela. So Indra, it's not an accident that the word Indra and Indriya are so close. Indriya is senses, So Indra is someone who's really, the senses get control of him. So periodically, he has to be chastised. So Indra, he has a responsible position, but it's not on the level of the devotees in all the level in Goloka Vrindavan. They're all much higher. All right, one more verse, 56. Hey, it's good, short purport. Sarva karman yapisada kurvano mad vipashriyaha mat prasadadavapnoti shashvatam padamavyayam. Though engaged in all kinds of activities, my pure devotee, under my protection, reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. Purport. The word madvyapashriyaha means under the protection of the Supreme Lord. To be free from material contamination, a pure devotee acts under the direction of the Supreme Lord or his representative, the spiritual master. There is no time limitation for a pure devotee. He is always 24 hours a day, 100% engaged in activities under the direction of the Supreme Lord. To a devotee who is thus engaged in Krishna consciousness, the Lord is very, very kind. In spite of all difficulties, he is eventually placed in the transcendental abode or Krishna Loka. He is guaranteed entrance there. There is no doubt about it. In that supreme abode, there is no change. Everything is eternal, imperishable, and full of knowledge. So this is one of the wonderful things about this Bhagavad Gita. I couldn't write that because I'm not experiencing it. But Prabhupada is actually living this. He's telling this from experience. And he went through so many difficulties. You read his biography, Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, or there's a nice summary of it called Prabhupada, I think, this Prabhupada. And, just to leave India, not just India, but leave Vrindavan. He's sitting in Radha Damodar temple. He could have easily just kept chanting and gone, But he had this order, he had this instruction from his spiritual master to take Krishna consciousness out of India and go to preach in England, in America, basically. And so he, at an age of 69, not in the greatest health, he gets on a cargo ship, free passage. He'd never been on a ship. He got a lot of problem with nausea. He had 2 heart attacks. And he said in his journal, he was keeping a journal, I knew if I had a 3rd one, I'd be finished, So he has this dream, and Krishna comes to him in a dream and says, don't worry, I'm going to take charge of the boat, So they're in the middle of the Atlantic during the hurricane season. Unpredictable weather. But it was just very, very smooth passage. Unusually smooth. He came to America in September 65. And he came to Boston, then down to New York. And then he had to leave New York. He had no friends there, but he had one contact in Pennsylvania, in a town called Butler. Does that name ring a bell? No? Not so much. You're not following the news. There was attempted assassination of the president there. Butler, Pennsylvania. Yeah. So he was there for a few weeks as a guest, and then he said, but there's nothing happening here, basically. So he came to New York, and it was very difficult that first year. He didn't really make much headway, And he would go back to the port, and find the office, but he would never get on the boat. He had free passage back, he never took it. And finally, he made some headway right in the middle of the hippie era. Everyone's dropping acid and seeing God, and everything. There was all of this spiritual fervor, and right in the middle of it, on the East Coast. On the East Coast, it was in Lower East Side, New York. On the West Coast, of course, it was the Park, Summer of Love. That was '67. He was also in the middle of that. Anyway, so many difficulties, he had. But he persevered, and he succeeded in spreading this mantra all over the world and starting this temple. He never came to this particular temple, but there was another temple, smaller one down by the park that he came to. And it was just amazing. And all because he had such faith in this Hare Krishna mantra, he said, that I knew if I could just get him to chant. And, okay, we'll drop acid, we'll also, chant Hare Krishna. I mean, that's an experiment. And they even had but Prabhupada's rules were, okay, you're going to chant Hare Krishna, be party, then you have to give up all intoxication. So a lot of, they couldn't take that. They'd come and chant a little bit, then leave, But those who were really serious, they did that. And finally, they came to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, this is we feel like we were able to stay high forever. Said, okay, make a little pamphlet, say, stay high forever, a little flyer. And it was very successful. People would come to the, if you could pass them out on the Lower East Side, So anyway, that's the Prabhupada's life. And he's saying here, the devotee thus engaged in Krishna consciousness, the Lord is very, very kind. Despite all difficulties, he's eventually placed in the transcendental abode, So that's one of the great values of Srila Prabhupada's book. He's writing from experience. It's not some theoretical thing, and that comes across, and you can have faith in it. All right, it's getting late. One little poem. How about a little saying? This is one of my favorites. Every body dies, right? Every single body dies. Everybody dies. Nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body. You're a pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.